The massive reptilian warrior named Crix pushed through the crowd of aliens like a ship cutting through water. His scales were dark green with silver edges that caught the station lights and made him look even more dangerous than his 8-foot. Height already suggested each of his 4 powerful arms ended in claws that could tear through metal, and his yellow eyes burned with the kind of confidence that came from never losing a fight. Other aliens moved out of his way without being asked. They knew his reputation throughout the galaxy as one of the most feared warriors among all the species. Crix had single-handedly conquered 3 different planets, and his name was spoken with respect and terror across 100 star systems. No one wanted to be the target of his attention, but today Crix was interested in something new. These strange creatures called humans, who had somehow convinced the Galactic Council that they deserved a place among the advanced civilizations he had. Heard the reports about their primitive technology and their short violent history, and he could not understand why anyone took them seriously. He stopped directly in front of Park Ji-won and looked down at the much smaller human with obvious contempt. The Korean soldier was barely 6 feet tall and weighed maybe 200 pounds compared to Crix, who was over 400 pounds of pure muscle and natural armor. Yet this tiny creature was supposed to represent a warrior species. "So you are the famous humans," Crix said, through his translator device. His voice was deep and rough like rocks grinding together in an earthquake. The sound made several nearby aliens take another step backwards, but Ji-won remained perfectly still. "You do not look like much to me. Your species claims to be strong, but I see only weakness." Lee Min-ho felt his stomach twist with fear as he watched the giant alien circle around them like a predator studying its next meal. He wanted to run or call for help, but he knew that would make things worse for all humans. The eyes of hundreds of aliens were watching this encounter and judging whether Earth people deserved respect or pity. Kim So-young pushed forward from where she had been standing with the other human. Diplomats. She was trained in alien languages and cultural protocols, and she could see that this situation was becoming dangerous very quickly. Her job was to prevent exactly this kind of confrontation from happening. "Wait, please," she said, holding up her hands in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "We came here to build friendship between our species, not to fight. There must be a better way to resolve any concerns you have about humans. We are willing to discuss anything you wish to know about us." Crix laughed, and the sound was like metal being torn apart. It echoed through the huge room and made everyone stop their conversations to look in their direction. "Your female speaks of peace," he said with disgust dripping from every word. "But warriors do not hide behind the words of their females. A true warrior speaks with strength, not with pretty promises." The crowd around them was growing larger as aliens from across the station hurried over to see what was happening. Some were taking pictures or making recordings that would be sent back to their home worlds within hours. The reputation of humanity throughout the galaxy would be decided by what happened in the next few minutes. "I have heard that humans are supposed to be dangerous fighters," Crix continued as he moved closer to Ji-won. "Your people claim to have conquered your entire planet through warfare. But looking at you, I think those stories must be lies. You are too small and soft to be real." Warriors, Ji-won had not moved or spoken during this entire exchange. His military training had taught him to observe and analyze before taking action. He was studying Crix and looking for weaknesses, while also trying to understand what the alien really wanted. From this confrontation, the reptilian warrior was clearly trying to provoke a fight, but Ji-won could see that this was about more than just personal combat. This was a test of whether humans belonged in the galactic community. If he responded with violence, he might be seen as dangerous and unpredictable. If he backed down, he would be seen as weak and cowardly around them. The alien crowd was becoming more excited. Some were making what sounded like bets about what would happen next. Others were taking positions where they could get better views of the expected fight. The energy in the room was building toward something explosive. "Your silence proves my point," Crix declared loudly so that everyone could hear him clearly. A real warrior would have responded to my challenge by now. Instead, you stand there like a frightened child, hoping that someone else will save you from the big scary alien. The insults were getting worse and more personal, but Jiwan remained calm. His dark eyes never left Crix, but his body language stayed relaxed and non-threatening. He was like a coiled spring waiting for exactly the right moment to release all of its stored energy. Some of the alien observers started making disappointed sounds as they realized the human was not going to fight back. They had been hoping for entertainment, but instead they were watching what looked like a complete surrender. Several groups began turning away and going back to their own conversations. This made Crix angry because he was losing his audience. The whole point of this confrontation was to show the galaxy that humans were not worthy of respect. If the human would not fight, then he would have to force the issue in a more direct way. Fine. Crix snarled, as his yellow eyes blazed with fury. "If you will not defend your honor like a warrior, then I will treat you like the weak creature you obviously are. Maybe this will teach your species some respect for their betters in the galaxy." His massive right hand swept through the air faster than most creatures could follow. The sound of the slap echoed through the enormous room like a gunshot and could be heard clearly even over the noise of hundreds of conversations. The force of the blow would have sent most beings flying across the floor, but Park Ji-won barely moved. The impact turned his head slightly to the side, and a thin line of blood appeared at the corner of his mouth, where Crix's claws had scratched him. However, his feet remained planted firmly on the ground, and his expression did not change at all. The entire room fell completely silent. Everyone stopped talking, moving, or even breathing, as they waited to see what would happen next. The human had just been struck by one of the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. But he was still standing calmly as if nothing had happened. Jiwan slowly raised his left hand and wiped the blood from his mouth with the back of his fingers. His movements were deliberate and controlled, showing no sign of pain or fear. When he looked back at Crix, his dark eyes held something that made the alien warrior suddenly feel uncertain for the first time in years. 3 seconds passed in absolute silence while the two fighters stared at each other. The fate of humanity in the galactic community hung in the balance, waiting to be decided by whatever happened next. Commander Park Ji-won stepped off the transport ship and looked around with wide eyes. The space station was bigger than anything he had ever seen in his life. The walls stretched up so high that he could not see the ceiling, and strange lights moved in patterns across the metal surfaces, making him feel dizzy. His black military boots made soft sounds on the smooth floor as he walked forward. The Korean Navy SEAL had trained for many years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. He was representing all of Earth at the first meeting between humans and the galactic community. His heart beat fast, but his face stayed calm, like his training had taught him. Lee. Min-ho walked beside him, carrying a bag of Earth documents and gifts for the alien leaders. Min-ho was younger than Ji-won, and his hands shook a little as he tried not to stare at everything around them. Both men wore their best military uniforms, with the Korean and Earth flags on their shoulders. They wanted to make a good first impression for their entire planet. The air tasted different here, like metal and electricity mixed together. Strange smells that Ji-won could not identify floated past his nose as alien creatures moved around the huge space. Some aliens walked on 2 legs like humans, but others had 4 or 6 or 8 legs. Some floated in the air without touching the ground at all. A blue-skinned woman with 3 eyes approached them. She wore what looked like a uniform, but it was made from materials that seemed to glow. The translator device on her belt made strange beeping sounds before her words came out in perfect Korean. We welcome the humans to Titan Station. I am Guide Vela, and I will show you to the meeting area." Jiwan bowed politely. The way his mother had taught him when he was a child, Vela seemed surprised by this gesture, and her middle eye blinked rapidly. She led them through corridors that seemed to go on forever, past windows that showed the black space outside with stars, scattered like diamonds on dark cloth. They passed rooms where aliens were doing things that Jiwan could not understand, machines that made no sound but created bright lights that hurt to look at directly, creatures working with tools that looked like they were made from liquid metal that changed shape as they used them. Technology that seemed like magic to someone from Earth. In one room, Jiwan saw what looked like a map of the entire galaxy, billions of stars connected by lines of light that moved and changed colors. The scale of it made him feel very small. His whole life had been spent on one planet, and now he was seeing how tiny that planet was compared to everything else that existed. Minho whispered to him that he felt scared, but excited at the same time. They had both grown up reading stories about meeting aliens, but the reality was much more overwhelming than any book or movie had ever shown them. Every few seconds they saw something that would have been impossible on Earth. The corridor opened into a massive room that was bigger than any building Jiwan had ever been inside. Thousands of different alien species stood or sat or floated in groups throughout the space. Some were talking in languages that sounded like music, while others made sounds like machines or animals. The noise was incredible, but somehow not unpleasant. Near the center of the room stood beings that looked like they were made from living rock. Their skin appeared to be granite, and their eyes glowed like small suns. When they moved, the ground shook slightly under their weight, but they moved carefully, as if they were afraid of breaking something on the other side. Jiwan saw creatures that looked like they were made from water. Their bodies were transparent, and things floated inside them like fish in a clear pond. They spoke by changing colors instead of making sounds. The translator devices had trouble with them and kept making confused beeping noises. A group of aliens that looked like giant insects with beautiful wings was standing near a wall covered in screens that showed different planets. Some of the worlds looked like Earth with blue oceans and green land, but others were completely different. Red planets with purple skies or worlds covered in what looked like crystal formations. Vela pointed toward a raised platform in the center of the room where the most important aliens were gathering, the leaders of different species who would decide whether humans were ready to join the galactic community. Jiwan felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, knowing that billions of people on Earth were counting on him. He noticed that many aliens were staring at him and Minho. Some seemed curious, while others looked worried or even angry. Several groups were having intense discussions while pointing in their direction. It was clear that not everyone was happy about humans being invited to this meeting. A tall alien with silver skin and 4 arms walked past them. His eyes were completely black, like looking into deep space, and when he looked at the humans, his expression showed obvious dislike. He whispered something to another alien who laughed in a way that sounded mean. Jiwan realized that humans were not just new to this community. They were probably seen as primitive and backwards compared to these advanced civilizations who had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, while humans had only recently figured out how to leave their own planet. The translator device on his belt started beeping as conversations around them became louder. Many aliens were talking about the humans but trying to be polite about it. Some wondered if Earth people were smart enough to understand galactic technology. Others questioned whether humans were peaceful enough to be trusted with advanced weapons. Minho moved closer to Jiwan and spoke quietly about how some of the aliens looked very strong and dangerous. Several species appeared to be warriors based on their scars and the weapons they carried. Even their casual movements showed the kind of training that came from years of fighting. Through all of this, Ji-won kept his face calm and respectful. He had been chosen for this mission because of his ability to stay cool under pressure. His SEAL training had prepared him for situations where everything was unknown and potentially dangerous, but nothing had really prepared him for feeling so completely outmatched. They waited for the formal meeting to begin. Ji-won watched the alien leaders and tried to understand the social dynamics. Some species clearly had more power and influence than others. Certain groups moved with the confidence of those who were used to making important decisions, while others seemed more careful and cautious. He began to notice that several of the warrior species were paying special attention to him and Minho. It was not friendly curiosity, but more like predators sizing up potential prey. Their body language suggested that they saw humans as weak creatures who did not belong in this environment. The air in the room started to feel heavy with tension as more aliens noticed the humans and began forming opinions about them. Ji-won could sense that something was building toward a confrontation, but he did not know what form it would take or when it would happen. All he could do was stand straight, maintain his dignity, and hope that when the test came, he would be ready to represent humanity in whatever way was necessary. His training had taught him that the most dangerous moments often came when you least expected them, and he could feel that such a moment was approaching fast. The 3 seconds of silence ended like a dam breaking under too much pressure. Park Ji-won moved with a speed and precision that seemed to defy the laws of physics. His body transformed from a statue into a weapon of destruction so quickly that most of the alien observers could not even follow what was happening. Years of Navy SEAL training had been burned into every muscle fiber in his body. Countless hours of combat drills had programmed his reflexes to respond without conscious thought. When the moment came for action, his mind became crystal clear and his body moved like a perfectly designed machine built for one purpose only. His first strike hit Crix directly in the center of his chest, where the alien's 4 hearts were located. The punch landed with surgical precision, targeting the exact spot that would cause maximum damage to the reptilian warrior's breathing and circulation systems. The impact sounded like a hammer hitting an anvil. Crix doubled over, gasping for air that would not come into his lungs. His yellow eyes went wide with shock and confusion as he realized that the small human had somehow hurt him badly with a single blow. No one had been able to do that to him in over 20 years of fighting across the galaxy, but Ji-won was not finished. The Korean soldier's elbow came up in a devastating uppercut that caught Crix under his jaw and snapped his massive head backwards. The alien warrior's legs wobbled as his brain struggled to process what was happening to his supposedly invincible body. The watching crowd of aliens stood frozen in disbelief. What they were seeing was impossible, according to everything they knew about human capabilities. The small, primitive creature from Earth was systematically destroying one of the most feared warriors in galactic history. Ji-won's knee came up with the force of a pile driver and caught Crix in the stomach, lifting the 400-pound alien completely off his feet. The reptilian warrior made a sound like air being let out of a balloon as all the breath was forced from his body at once. Every movement was perfect. Every strike hit exactly where it needed to cause maximum damage. Ji-won was not fighting with anger or hatred, but with the cold efficiency of a professional soldier who had been trained to end conflicts as quickly as possible. The alien warrior tried to grab Ji-won with one of his 4 arms, but the human was no longer where Crix expected him to be. Ji-won had moved to the side and his fist connected with a nerve cluster just below the alien's shoulder, causing that entire arm to go numb and useless. Advanced alien species that had conquered entire star systems watched in amazement as their champion was taken apart piece by piece by someone they had considered barely worth noticing. The human's movements were so fluid and controlled that it looked like he was performing a deadly dance. Crix swung wildly with his remaining good arms, but Ji-won ducked under the clumsy attacks and responded with 2 quick punches to the alien's ribs. The sound of something cracking echoed through the silent room, and Crix stumbled sideways, clutching his injured side. The reptilian warrior's confidence was completely gone, now replaced by growing fear and panic. He had never been in a fight where he was losing this badly, this quickly. His reputation as an unbeatable warrior was being destroyed in front of hundreds of witnesses. From across the galaxy, Ji-Wan grabbed Crix by one of his arms and used the alien's own weight and momentum against him. The martial arts technique sent the massive warrior flying through the air before he crashed into the metal floor with a sound like thunder. The impact left a small dent in the station's reinforced deck plating. All four of the alien's arms were now either numb or injured, and he could barely breathe through his damaged ribs. His vision was blurry, and his head was spinning from the combination of impacts he had received in less than 30 seconds of actual fighting. The watching aliens could not believe what they were seeing. Some of them had technologies that could destroy planets, but they were staring in awe at a human who had just defeated their champion, using nothing but his bare hands and incredible skill. Lee Minho stood with his mouth hanging open as he watched his friend and commanding officer demonstrate exactly why Earth had chosen him for this mission. The young Korean soldier had always known that Ji-Wan was an exceptional fighter, but seeing him in action against an alien warrior was like watching a master artist create a masterpiece. Kim So-young found herself feeling proud and terrified at the same time, proud that a human had proven their species was not weak, but terrified about what this display of violence might mean for diplomatic relations with the galactic community. Several alien species began talking excitedly among themselves as they realized they had completely misjudged human capabilities. The recordings of this fight would spread across the galaxy within hours and change how every civilization viewed the new species from Earth. Crix tried to get back to his feet, but his legs would not support his weight properly. The proud warrior who had dominated battlefields on dozens of worlds now lay broken and defeated on the floor of a space station, staring up at a human he had dismissed as worthless. Other members of Crix's species moved forward to help him, but stopped when they saw the look in his yellow eyes. It was not just pain or injury, but something much worse. The complete destruction of everything he had believed about himself and his place in the universe. Ji-Wan stood over his defeated opponent, breathing normally and showing no signs of fatigue or injury. His uniform was not even wrinkled, and the only evidence of the fight was the small amount of blood at the corner of his mouth from the original slap. The Korean soldier looked down at Crix with an expression that was not cruel or mocking, but simply professional. He had done what needed to be done to defend his species' reputation, and now the matter was finished as far as he was concerned. Around them, the crowd of alien observers began to understand that they were witnessing a historic moment. The balance of power in the galactic community had just shifted in a way that no one had expected when they woke up that morning. The silence stretched on as everyone tried to process what they had just seen. A species that had been dismissed as primitive had just demonstrated capabilities that rivaled or exceeded those of the most advanced warrior cultures in known space. Crix finally managed to speak, though his voice was weak and filled with something that sounded like fear. "Please," he whispered through his damaged translator device, "I yield, I surrender." The words came out like they were being torn from his throat against his will. The words "I surrender" came from Crix like they were being pulled out of his soul against his will. The mighty warrior who had never begged for anything in his entire life found himself pleading with a creature he had attacked just moments before. His yellow eyes, that had always burned with arrogance, now showed genuine fear and respect. "Please," Crix gasped again as he struggled to breathe through his damaged ribs. "I yield to the human warrior. I was wrong about your species." The translator device on his belt sparked and made strange noises as it tried to process the pain and shock in his voice. The crowd of alien observers stood in complete silence, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. beings from civilizations that had mastered space travel thousands of years ago watched in amazement as their champion lay broken on the floor, begging for mercy from what they had considered a primitive life form, recording devices that had been expecting to capture human humiliation instead, documented the complete destruction of their assumptions about Earth and its people. The footage would be analyzed by military experts across the galaxy for years to come, as they tried to understand how such a small being could be so devastatingly effective. Jung Hyomin stepped forward from where she had been standing with the other Earth diplomats. Her role as military attaché meant she understood better than anyone else what this moment represented for humanity in the galactic community. Her words would be remembered and quoted for generations. Humans have spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war on a world that tried to kill us every single day. She said clearly, so that every translator device in the room could process her words. We learned to fight not just other humans, but nature itself. She gestured toward Park Ji-won, who stood calmly over his defeated opponent like a statue of some ancient war god. Every human child learns that survival means being stronger than the challenges they face. We did not have advanced technology or space travel, so we became weapons ourselves. The aliens began to lean forward to hear better as they realized they were learning something important about this new species that had suddenly appeared in their ordered galactic society. These were not just words of explanation, but a revelation about what humans truly were. Our planet forged us in conflict until we became something the galaxy has never seen before. Hyomin continued. Each generation had to be tougher and smarter and more determined than the last, or they would not survive to have children. We are all descendants of the winners of millions of small wars. A blue-skinned alien with multiple eyes raised one of his hands to ask a question. Are you saying that your entire species are trained warriors? He asked through his translator device. The concept seemed difficult for him to understand. Not trained, born that way. Ji-won spoke for the first time since the fight. His voice was calm, but carried the weight of absolute certainty. Every human grows up knowing that the world is dangerous and that only the strong survive. We do not choose to be fighters. We are made into fighters by the reality of existence. Several aliens began talking among themselves in excited voices as they realized the implications of what they were hearing. These humans had not developed their fighting abilities through military training or genetic modification. They were naturally occurring weapons created by their environment. Crix managed to pull himself into a sitting position with help from others of his species. His massive frame still shook from the damage he had received, but his yellow eyes were now focused and alert as he listened to the humans explain themselves. How Crix asked weakly. That was all he could manage, but everyone understood what he wanted to know. How had a being so much smaller than himself been able to defeat him so completely and so quickly on Earth? We call it training, Ji-won replied as he extended his hand to help stabilize the injured alien. This gesture of respect toward a defeated opponent surprised everyone present. Every day we prepare for the fight that might decide whether we live or die. It becomes part of who we are, Yang Nari. The human xenobiologist stepped forward to provide additional context that would help the aliens understand their new potential allies better. Her scientific background gave her the knowledge to explain human evolution in terms that other species could comprehend. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. She explained to the fascinated crowd, we do not give up. When something knocks us down, we get back up stronger than before. This is not cruelty or aggression. This is simply how we survived long enough to reach the stars. The mood in the command center began to shift dramatically as species that had viewed humans as curiosities started to see them as potentially valuable allies. Whispered conversations in dozens of different languages spread through the crowd as the implications of what they had witnessed began to sink in. A tall alien with silver skin, who had been dismissive of humans earlier, now approached with obvious respect in his posture. "Your species has impressive capabilities," he admitted through his translator device. "Perhaps we have misjudged your potential contribution to our community." Lee Minho watched in amazement as aliens who had been ignoring or mocking humans just minutes before now gathered around asking questions about Earth military training and combat techniques. The entire dynamic of the meeting had changed completely because of 30 seconds of violence. Kim So-young found herself surrounded by alien diplomats who wanted to discuss trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. Species that had originally planned to offer humans junior membership in the galactic community were now talking about full partnerships and military cooperation. The recordings of the fight were already being transmitted across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds, reaching alien governments and military commands on thousands of different worlds. The message was clear: humans were not the weak, primitive species. They appeared to be. Crix finally managed to stand with assistance from his fellow warriors. He looked at Jiwon with new understanding, recognizing a fellow predator rather than prey. "I request permission to learn more about human combat methods," he said formally. Jiwon nodded respectfully. "We would be honored to share our knowledge with warriors who show courage in defeat," he replied. The Korean soldier's response showed the kind of grace and dignity that impressed even species known for their sophisticated cultural development. Around them, the massive space station buzzed with new energy as hundreds of alien species began to reconsider everything they thought they knew about the newcomers from Earth. The galaxy had just learned that humanity brought something unique and valuable to the interstellar community. The test that was supposed to prove human weakness had instead revealed their hidden strength. In the space of a few minutes, Earth had gone from being a curiosity to being a player that demanded respect from even the most advanced civilizations in known space. Choi Tae-hyung stepped onto the raised platform at the center of the massive room, where the most important alien leaders had gathered to witness the historic encounter. His position as senior human diplomat gave him the authority to speak for all of Earth, and his words would shape how humanity was viewed throughout the galaxy for generations to come. "We did not come here seeking conflict," he said clearly, while looking directly at each alien leader in turn. "But we will not run from it either. Humans have learned that respect must sometimes be earned through strength rather than given freely through goodwill." The alien council members who had been prepared to offer humans a minor role in galactic affairs now found themselves reconsidering everything they had planned. The small being standing before them represented a species that had just proven they could hold their own against the most feared warriors in known space. A crystalline alien whose body sparkled like diamonds in the station lights leaned forward with obvious interest. "Your species appears to have capabilities that we did not expect," she said through her translator device. "How many of your people possess these fighting skills?" Tae-hyung smiled in a way that was both friendly and slightly unsettling. "Every human receives basic training in self-defense and combat from childhood," he explained. "It is not considered unusual or special on our world. It is simply part of growing up and learning how to survive." This revelation sent shocked murmurs through the assembled alien leaders. Species that prided themselves on having elite warrior classes suddenly realized they were dealing with an entire planet of potential soldiers. The implications for galactic military balance were staggering. Crix had managed to make his way to the platform area with help from his companions. The defeated warrior moved slowly and carefully, but his yellow eyes burned with newfound respect as he looked at the human diplomat's eye. "Wish to speak," he announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. The room fell silent as the reptilian warrior who had started this entire confrontation prepared to address the assembly. His opinion would carry enormous weight among the military-focused. Species who had always looked to him for guidance on matters of combat and warfare. I have fought on 100 worlds against every type of warrior the galaxy has produced, Crix said, while his translator struggled to convey the emotion in his voice. But I have never encountered anything like what I experienced today. This human did not just defeat me. He dismantled me with precision and skill that I did not know was possible. The alien leaders listened intently as their champion described his encounter with human combat capabilities. They had all seen the recordings, but hearing the analysis from someone with Crix's experience gave them a deeper understanding of what they had witnessed. The human warrior did not fight with anger or hatred. Crix continued as he looked directly at Park Ji-won, who stood quietly nearby. He fought with the cold efficiency of a natural predator that had been trained to perfection. Every movement was calculated, every strike was precisely targeted. Lee Minho felt his chest swell with pride as he listened to the most feared warrior in the galaxy praise his commanding officer and friend. The young Korean soldier realized that this moment would be talked about in military academies across Earth for centuries. To come, young Nari was approached by a group of alien scientists who wanted to understand the biological and evolutionary factors that had created human fighting capabilities. Their questions came rapidly as they tried to comprehend how a single planet could produce such effective warriors. Human evolution was shaped by constant conflict, she explained to the fascinated researchers. Our ancestors had to compete with predators that were bigger, stronger, and faster than they were. The only way to survive was to become smarter, more coordinated, and more determined. The scientists made excited notes as she described how humans had developed their unique combination of intelligence, endurance, and aggression through millions of years of evolutionary pressure. They began to understand that Earth had been a crucible that forged its inhabitants into something completely new. A floating alien that looked like it was made of pure energy drifted closer to the human delegation. Your planet sounds like. It would be classified as a death world by our standards, it said through a device that translated its thoughts into audible speech. How did your species achieve civilization under such harsh conditions? We learned to work together, Tai-hyung replied. With simple honesty, individual humans are not the strongest or fastest creatures. But when we cooperate, we become something much more powerful. Conflict taught us both how to fight and how to unite against common threats. This explanation helped. The aliens understand that human military capabilities were not just individual skills, but part of a larger cultural system that emphasized teamwork, loyalty, and mutual support. The combination made them potentially valuable allies rather than dangerous enemies. Kim So-young found herself in conversation with alien diplomats who were now eager to establish formal relations with Earth species that had originally planned to treat humans as junior partners were suddenly offering full membership. In various galactic organizations and defense alliances, the head of the Galactic Defense Council, a being that looked like a living tree with glowing fruit, stepped forward to address the entire assembly. Today we have learned that our assumptions about the human species were completely incorrect, he announced. His words carried the weight of official policy as he continued. We came here expecting to welcome a primitive civilization that would need our guidance and protection. Instead, we have discovered a warrior culture that could teach valuable lessons to our own military forces. The ancient alien looked directly at the human delegation with what appeared to be respectful curiosity. We formally invite Earth to join the Galactic Defense Initiative as full partners rather than as students. The skills your people possess could be invaluable in protecting all of our worlds. This offer represented everything that Earth had hoped to achieve through first contact with alien civilizations. Full membership in the galactic community, with all the technological and cultural benefits that would bring for human development and expansion among the stars park. Ji-won remained quiet throughout these negotiations, but his presence served as a constant reminder of what humans were capable of when pushed to their limits. The Korean soldier had become a symbol of his entire species, potential for both violence and restraint. Other alien species began approaching the human delegation with offers of military exchanges, cultural programs, and technology-sharing agreements. The fight that was supposed to humiliate humanity had instead opened doors that might have taken decades to unlock. Through normal diplomatic channels, Crix struggled to his feet one final time and approached Ji-won directly. The massive reptilian warrior extended one of his clawed hands in what was clearly meant as a gesture of respect. "I request permission to visit your Earth and learn from your warriors," said formally. Ji-won accepted the gesture with a slight bow. "You would be welcome on our world," he replied. "Any warrior who shows courage in defeat deserves honor from those who understand the true cost of combat." The alliance that was beginning to form between humans and the galactic community was built on mutual respect rather than charity or pity. Earth had proven that it brought something unique and valuable to the interstellar civilization, and the galaxy was eager to learn from their newest members. 3 months after the historic encounter at Titan Station, the entire galaxy had learned about humanity and their unexpected military capabilities. The recording of Park Ji-won's fight with Crix had been viewed billions of times across thousands of different worlds and had fundamentally changed how every alien civilization viewed the newcomers from Earth. The footage spread faster than the most advanced starships could travel, reaching even the most remote corners of galactic space within. Weeks alien military commanders who had never heard of humans suddenly found themselves studying Earth combat techniques and requesting detailed reports about human capabilities. Captain Song Ji-hye stood in her new office aboard the Centauri Defense Station looking out at the stars through a massive transparent wall. She had been promoted to head of human military affairs for the entire Galactic sector, a position that had been created specifically to manage the flood of requests for human military advisors. Her desk was covered with formal requests from dozens of different alien species who wanted human trainers for their military forces. The Andorian Empire wanted help developing close combat training programs. The Crystal Collective requested assistance with ground warfare tactics. Even the peaceful flower people had asked for defensive combat instruction. The irony was not lost on her that humans who had been seen as too primitive for galactic society just months ago were now in such high demand that they could barely keep up with all the requests for their services. Every major military organization in known space wanted to learn from Earthly. Minho had been assigned to work with Ji-hye as her deputy, and he spent most of his time coordinating training exchanges between human instructors and alien military units. The young Korean officer who had been terrified during first contact was now confidently negotiating with some of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "Today we received requests from 17 different species," Minho reported as he entered her office with a tablet full of new messages. "The Crystalline Federation wants a full battalion of human advisors, and the Rock people are offering to trade advanced mining technology for combat training." Ji-hye shook her head in amazement as she reviewed the requests. It seemed like every day brought new opportunities for cooperation between Earth and the galactic community. The transformation in their status had been so dramatic that sometimes she could hardly believe it. Was real. Crix had become one of humanity's strongest advocates among the warrior species of the galaxy. The defeated reptilian fighter used his influence and reputation to spread word that humans should be treated as equals rather than curiosities. His endorsement carried enormous weight among civilizations that respected strength above all else. The alien warrior had even established a formal exchange program between his homeworld and Earth where young fighters from both species could learn from each other. His personal defeat had become the foundation for a friendship that benefited both civilizations. Back on Earth, the news of humanity's galactic success had transformed military recruitment and training programs. Young people who had once dreamed of exploring space now had the chance to serve as instructors and advisors to alien military forces across the galaxy. Yang Nari had been appointed as Director of Interspecies Military Studies at the new Galactic Defense Academy on Luna. Her research into human combat evolution had become required reading for alien military scientists who wanted to understand how Earth had produced such effective warriors. The Academy itself was a joint project between Earth and 12 different alien civilizations designed to share military knowledge and develop new strategies for galactic defense. Human instructors worked alongside alien experts to create training programs that combined the best elements from dozens of different warrior cultures. Students from across the galaxy came to study human persistence, hunting techniques, hand-to-hand combat methods, and psychological warfare tactics. The academic courses were always overbooked with waiting lists that stretched for months as beings from advanced civilizations sought to learn from supposedly primitive humans. Kim So-young had been promoted to Ambassador for Military Affairs and spent her time negotiating formal defense treaties between Earth and various alien governments. The diplomatic relationships that had started with curiosity had evolved into genuine strategic partnerships. Her latest assignment involved organizing the first joint military exercise between human forces and the Galactic Defense Fleet. The operation would test how well Earth soldiers could integrate with alien military units and would serve as a demonstration of human capabilities for species that had not yet seen them in action. Choi Tae-hyung remained as senior diplomat, but his role had expanded to include coordinating the cultural exchange programs that were growing alongside the military partnerships alien civilians were becoming interested in. Human art, music, literature, and philosophy as they learned more about Earth culture. The diplomatic compound on Titan Station had been expanded 3 times to accommodate all the alien delegations that wanted to establish formal relations with Earth. What had started as a small introduction meeting had become a permanent center for interspecies cooperation. Park Ji-won had returned to Earth as a hero, but he remained humble about his role in changing humanity's status throughout the galaxy. The Korean soldier continued his military duties while also serving as an instructor for the new interspecies combat training programs. In interviews with Galactic media, he always emphasized that any human soldier could have done what he did. "We are all products of Earth." He would say, "We all carry the strength that our world gave us. That alien soldier just happened to meet one of us on the wrong day." His words became a rallying cry for human military recruitment as young people across Earth signed up to serve as representatives of their species among the stars. The idea that every human carried the potential for greatness resonated deeply with a generation that had grown up dreaming of space travel. The Galactic Defense Initiative had restructured itself to take full advantage of human combat capabilities. What had begun as a charity case for a primitive species had become a genuine partnership between equals. Humans found themselves not just accepted, but actively recruited by military organizations across the galaxy. Advanced alien civilizations that had initially offered technology and guidance to help humans catch up were now requesting human expertise to improve their own military effectiveness. The student had become the teacher in a transformation that amazed everyone involved. New starships were being designed with human crew quarters and training facilities as alien governments competed to attract human military advisors. The species that had once worried about whether humans were advanced enough for galactic society now worried about whether they were attractive enough for human cooperation. Trade agreements followed military partnerships as alien civilizations realized that Earth offered more than just fighting skills. Human creativity, adaptability, and determination proved valuable in many fields beyond warfare. Technology, art, science, and philosophy all benefited from the fresh perspectives that humans brought. The future looked bright for humanity among the stars. What had started with a single slap had grown into a galaxy-spanning alliance that would shape interstellar civilization for generations to come. Earth had found its place in the cosmic community not through advanced technology or peaceful diplomacy, but through the ancient virtues of courage, determination, and skill in battle.